Welcome back, everyone, to part 2 of my reaction to the brand new video by Oversimplified, The Pig War. We're going to be picking up right where we left off. If you didn't see the first half of my reaction, the link is in the description to that first half. And before I get into this, I do want to address something. Whenever I do something like Oversimplified, which gets a lot of views and brings a lot of people who aren't familiar to the channel, I would encourage you to look around a little bit before you start judging what the channel is all about. I inevitably get the hate comments saying stuff like, well, you're trying to capitalize off of Oversimplified, you're trying to steal their stuff, all that kind of thing. Not my intention at all. I am not making a dime on this video. Oversimplified gets all the ad revenue. It gets monetized for them right away, as it does for anybody else who does a reaction to their stuff. So I'm not benefiting financially in any way from doing this. It's just something that my viewers really want to see. I had hundreds of comments last night from people asking when I was going to do the reaction to Oversimplified. So here we are doing that. I do this because I love history. The members of the community of this channel love history, and it's an opportunity for us to talk about an event that most of us don't know a whole lot about. So that's why we're doing this. I hope you'll stick around and check out some of my original content as well as the reactions. Let's dive in to part 2.
What the? Spuddy?
Oh no!
All right,
No.
you damn dirty pig.
So that's a little bit of a quote reminiscent of Planet of the Apes. Charlton Heston says that about an ape, only he's saying it about a pig.
It's the final straw.
Not the pig!
Lyman
Gonna be hell to pay.
shot the pig. After taking a second to calm down, he felt bad about murdering Griffin's prized boar. So he went to him and said, "Hey man, look, I kinda just..."
Now let's remember, this is the guy who didn't build the fence all the way around, didn't want to be bothered with clearing his own land, and so he's been pretty lazy, and now he's reaping the benefits of that, which is that an animal came into his farm and started eating his crops. He has nobody to blame but himself, really.
Killed your pig. It was eating my potatoes again, and I don't know, man,
He's gonna see
kinda
red.
just killed your pig. Killed your pig. Killed your pig.
Remembering the good times. This is bad.
You swine! No,
No, the pig was
the
the
swine
swine.
is the one I killed. I'm Lyman. Griffin demanded Lyman pay $100 for the loss of the pig. An outrageous...
That is a lot of money in the 1850s. That is a whole lot of money. Way more than that pig was worth.
sum at the time. Obviously, Lyman refused, threatening to shoot any more animals that dared enter his property.
He's doubling down. He's like, I'm sorry about killing your pig, but if any of your other animals come, I'm going to kill them too. This is just an escalation of things, and this is where you're going to get governments and militaries involved.
Threatening to shoot Griffin himself. When Griffin complained to James Douglas, British officials went and confronted the pig killer. Again, they insisted he pay up, and if he didn't, Lyman claimed they threatened to arrest him and take him back to Victoria. British officials arresting an American on American soil and trying him under British law.
This is pretty much how the War of 1812 got started. Remember, one of the main causes for the War of 1812 between the British and the Americans was the British impressment of sailors. They would stop an American ship on the ocean and they would say, well, you're actually a British citizen, and they would confiscate some of their sailors and force them to serve on their ships instead. And so now here we have the British again threatening to take an American to their territory to try them. And so this very much could end up leading to the exact same situation again.
Now that's controversial. And it's a controversy that attracted the attention of an American general in charge of the Department of Oregon, one William S. Harney. This guy, General Harney, had a reputation. He's the kind of guy who invades Mexico without orders, wasting valuable resources and creating an embarrassing situation for everyone involved. He's the kind of guy who has one of his own men arrested for writing the wrong header on a report. He's the kind of guy who finds a dog digging up his yard and then chases it for 1.5 miles just to give it a beating. He hated superiors.
That's George McClellan right there, who never had 3 stars, by the way. The first 3-star general in American history after George Washington is Ulysses S. Grant in 1864.
Hated being told what to do and had been court-martialed 4 times for disobeying orders. Contemporaries described him as an imbecile, all matter and no mind, an arrogant humbug, and a laughingstock. Like I said, General Harney had a reputation. He hated the British and was out for any opportunity to earn personal glory for himself. By some accounts, he even wanted to become president. And so, in July 1859, when he happened to visit San Juan Island, and he learned of the plight
Here comes
of the
George
Americans
Pickett
living there, the shooting of a pig, and the British threat to arrest Lyman Cutler, General Harney went into scheme mode.
He did.
Hey, yo, Captain Pickett. Yes, sir. Listen carefully. I need you to go pick up some flowers and bring them to my...
He's ironing a shirt, and then he's holding the shirt up as an iron, or the iron up as a phone. Of course, there's no phones at this point in history anyway, and he's talking on a banana.
Place later.
And now he's on fire.
Here I am, sir. What's the plan? Pickett, you and I are going to start a war. What do you mean, sir? Okay, listen up. An American man shoots a worthless pig on San Juan Island, and the British threaten to arrest him. Outrageous. But we can use it. We get the settlers there to send us a petition saying they need American troops for protection. That's when you go with your men and occupy the island. The British will find American troops on an island they consider theirs so offensive, they won't hesitate to blow you to smithereens. Then, it's war. We bring in reinforcements, and we fight back. I'll write to Washington.
And you figure the Americans have the reinforcements. They've got several regiments out west. It would be easy enough to send more out there. Well, not easy. It would take a little bit of time. You got to remember, at this point in history, you've got the Oregon Trail. You don't have a railroad going across. And so, for example, when Ulysses S. Grant, I think he's with the 4th Infantry, and they get deployed to California, they actually go down to Panama, by land across Panama, then to get another ship and go back up to California. That was the fastest and considered to be the best way to get there. And half the people that were in their caravan of people died on the journey. But it was still safer than going across the United States as we know it today, or going all the way down around the Straits of Magellan. So there was really no easy way to get there, but it was still much faster than the British trying to send more troops out there.
DC, letting them know what's happening. But here's the kicker. My letter will take 6 whole weeks to get there, before the government even gets a chance to respond, telling me I'm an idiot
And I don't know why they're choosing to show a guy that looks similar to McClellan here, because the commander-in-chief at this point is Winfield Scott. So, I don't know, just a kind of a minor thing.
Ordering me to cease fire. The island will be ours. Hell, we could even invade Vancouver Island or British Columbia. It's foolproof. Wow, very impressive, sir. But I gotta ask, why? Well, I'll level with you, Pickett. Historians still contest exactly what it is I'm trying to do here. It's possible I'm trying to expand America's territory. Maybe I'm trying to play the hero so I can become president. Some have even suggested that since I'm a slave-owning Southerner, I may be trying to create a diversion to help the South secede in the upcoming Civil War. But if there's one thing that almost everyone can agree on, it's that I'm an idiot.
So what I've read is that George McClellan, who I keep bringing him up because he actually talked some about this and his theory about what happened. He thought that the idea for Harney and Pickett here was actually that by going to war with Britain, it would unite the country behind a common cause and keep the country from being pulled apart by the issue of slavery. By this point, we're getting real close to when John Brown's going to have his revolt. We're getting a year away from the 1860 election, which is going to be the final straw for the South and begin the process of secession that leads to civil war. And this was not the first time this was suggested. Even as war is starting to break out, there were people that were talking about, well, we should invade Central America, we should attack Mexico, we should go after Cuba, and all these ideas, thinking a war with Spain would again unite America against a common enemy. It wasn't a crazy idea.
I see. But hold on. What'd you tell me to bring flowers for? Because, Pickett, they're pretty and I like them! There are also historians who believe that Harney and Pickett had no secret plan at all, and were not scheming masterminds, but simply hot-headed buffoons, genuinely outraged at the audacity of the British, and trying to protect American citizens. But the fact of the matter is, Pickett took the very controversial and extremely provocative act of landing American troops on disputed territory. He set up his camp in a very exposed position and erected a very provocative sign proclaiming that only American laws applied on the island. It was almost like he was asking to be fired upon. Or, again, maybe he was just an idiot. When a British official sent to the island to get rid of the unruly American settlers now saw that there were American troops, he demanded they leave.
I will say this, I don't think Pickett was an idiot. Most people remember Pickett because of Pickett's Charge, which of course wasn't his idea. And by all accounts, Pickett was a pretty solid general during the Civil War. I don't think he was a stupid guy by any stretch of the imagination. He did pretty poorly at West Point, but a lot of people did. I don't think he was an idiot.
He was obviously told to go suck an egg. When Douglas found out, he was enraged. To him, the American landing constituted an invasion. Harney sent a report back to the War Department in D.C., justifying his actions with exaggerated claims of British villainy. But he knew it would take 6 weeks to get there, and another 6 weeks for their reply to come back. For now, the situation was entirely in the hands of local military and government officials. And
Think about that. To get any new orders, we're talking a 3-month turnaround. A lot can happen in 3 months.
Was in the British court.
Even longer for the British.
With the temperamental Governor Douglas and the powerful British Navy respond to the American provocation with force? Were Britain and America really about to go to war over the shooting of a pig? Well, if one man were to have his way, it's entirely possible they would.
And, as we say, would they go to war over the shooting of a pig? Keep in mind, the pig, while it's a provocative step in this process, it's hardly the reason. Just like the War of the Bucket was really not about the bucket just played a role. The pig is just one more escalation and something that's been going on for a while now. Same thing happened with a pig in the story of the Hatfield and McCoy feud. There was an argument, there was a trial over the theft of a pig, but the pig was hardly the first step and it was hardly the last. But it is one that people remember as one of the triggers.
James Douglas had already had Americans force him out of Oregon. They had threatened his position in Victoria during the gold rush. Now they had invaded his island, and he had had it. It was time to turn to the Royal Navy. You, Captain Hornby, go to the island and prevent any more Americans from landing. And take this magistrate with you to arrest Captain Pickett. Use force if necessary. Just don't do anything to start a war. Wait, you want me to use force but not start a war? Oh, I'm sorry. Is that too much to ask, Princess? When Captain Hornby got to the island and saw that the American force there was even larger than expected, his concern grew. He sent word back to Douglas, who in response ordered even more ships to the island. And at this point, the naval officers were like, hey man, let's talk. They were concerned Douglas's escalation was leading them to war.
So interesting here that in this case, you have the subordinates, people who answer to Douglas, wanting to slow things down, because a lot of times in history you have the civilian authority trying to find a negotiated settlement and you have the military leaders pushing for war. Look at World War I. It's exactly what was happening. You've got people like Tsar Nicholas II and Kaiser Wilhelm trying desperately behind the scenes to come to a diplomatic solution, and you've got the war leaders saying no, it's war, we got to push for war. The opposite's happening here.
And they convinced him it probably wasn't a terribly good idea to just go up to an American military captain with his armed men and say, "Hey, bucko, you're under arrest. Please don't shoot me." Douglas gave in. To prevent any hostilities, he canceled all orders and told the Navy, for now, to simply keep an eye on the Americans. He did send one more ship for good measure. Captain Pickett, now seeing the British ships with their guns aimed directly at his exposed camp, said, "See, Jeff? Look at that. We're about to get blown to bits. All according to plan." Hang on. "Oh crap, Jeff, we're about to get blown to bits! Run!" Pickett hastily moved his camp from its very exposed position to another position, which, as it happened, was also very exposed. It probably won't surprise you to learn Pickett came dead last in his graduating class. Nearby American and British officials began showing up to ask Pickett.
But again, there's a lot of reasons why people finish low in their class. You know who else finished low in their class was George Armstrong Custer. Ulysses S. Grant was kind of in the middle of his class. Robert E. Lee was, I think, second in his class. So if you look throughout history at where people finished in their graduating classes, it's sometimes an indicator of future success, but not always.
What the heck he was even doing. Then, a bunch of tourists showed up, because a major war breaking out in their doorstep was the single most exciting thing to ever happen in any of their miserable frontier lives. One Charles Griffin was particularly unhappy. First, his pig had been shot. Now his sheep pastures were being trampled by soldiers and tourists alike. He complained to Governor Douglas, who was still pretty upset about the whole thing. Douglas felt British honor itself was at stake. So he decided that if American forces were allowed to be on the island, well then by golly, the British should be there too. It would be a joint military occupation.
Escalation.
Upon hearing Douglas's new plan to land British troops on the island, Captain Hornby decided to go speak with Pickett in person. After informing him of the plan, Pickett replied that if they dared land, he would open fire. So there they were. The British had orders to land. The Americans had orders to prevent their landing. This was it. War. Over a small island in the middle of nowhere. Over a pig and some potatoes. Over whether the US-Canada border looked like this or like this. It was stupid. Hold on.
It was stupid.
This is stupid.
But that's literally how a lot of major world events happen, over something stupid. Or something that's serious, but shouldn't lead to wars that kill millions of people, but it happens.
To heck with it. I'm not landing those troops. I'm not gonna be the one who starts a war.
Good for him.
The captain decided not to follow Douglas's order. And good thing he didn't, because pretty soon after that, the leading British admiral in the entire Pacific region showed up. Rear Admiral Baines outranked Governor Douglas. When he heard of everything that had been going on, he was stunned. But when he heard that Hornby had refused Douglas's plan to land troops, Baines could have kissed him. Whether he did or not, history doesn't tell. But I like to think they did. The Rear Admiral canceled all of Douglas's orders and instead pursued a policy of not interfering with the Americans until he could contact the British government. The Americans, not knowing the British no longer intended to land, had sent reinforcements and began fortifying. But even still, the British Navy did nothing. And finally, when word made it across the planet, informing the two governments of the ongoing crisis, everyone was shocked. Holy crap! Harney landed troops on disputed territory? Man, I hope the British don't find out about this. Buchanan? Oh crap! The British! Why are we getting reports of American troops on San Juan Island? Whoa. I don't know, man. Nothing to do with me. But you're the president. What? Breckinridge? Am I the president?
And that's John C. Breckinridge. He's the vice president of the United States, becomes a Confederate general after the war, or during the war, after he leaves office as vice president.
Yes, sir. And hey, we got a problem. It looks like the southern states are considering seceding, and we're headed for the biggest crisis in the history of the nation. And it's your job to fix it, sir. Sir? Oh no. Go away. Not the curtain again, Mr. President.
Now, a little bit more about Breckinridge. He's one of the people who runs for president in 1860. And as part of the escalating tensions and the crisis that erupts, you have a Northern Democrat candidate, you have a Southern Democrat candidate, you have a guy that runs on the Constitutional Union ticket. a guy named John Bell, and his running mate is Edward Everett, who will be the main speaker at Gettysburg when Lincoln gives the Gettysburg Address. The two Democrat candidates, the Northern Democrat candidate is Stephen A. Douglas, the same Douglas that debated Lincoln in their campaign for Illinois Senate a couple years earlier, and Breckinridge is the Southern Democrat candidate. And those Democrat candidates split the vote, and that's what gets Lincoln elected as the second ever nominee for the Republican Party. 1856 was the first time they had run a nominee. That was John C. Fremont. Lincoln's the second one, and he wins.
Not here.
Buchanan. Back in the Pacific Northwest, Harney was beginning to realize the government may not be terribly impressed with his reckless actions. So he began firing off even more aggressive letters, justifying what he had done. Tell them the British were sending bands of Indians to attack our men, and that they're big meanies with coal for hearts, and that they made me cry like a little girl. Wait, no, that makes me sound weak. They made me cry like a big girl. Yeah, that's it. When the president received Harney's new letters, his anxiety only grew stronger. Oh, crap. Hey, General Scott.
There's Winfield Scott.
Go away. Leave it to me, sir. General Winfield Scott was the commanding general of the entire U.S. Army. Well known for his negotiation skills, he was a veteran of the Mexican-American War, during which time he had to deal with General Harney's idiocy and insubordination.
So there were two main Army commanders in the Mexican-American War. On the American side, Winfield Scott was one, and Zachary Taylor was the other one. Winfield Scott had actually run for president at some point, too, after the war, unsuccessfully. And he's still the commander-in-chief as a brevet lieutenant general when the Civil War breaks out. He's the one that kind of is the proponent of what they call the Anaconda Plan, which was the idea of squeezing the South with a blockade and then taking the Mississippi and, an anaconda, a snake that, strangles the South to death.
And he watched as Harney got away with it all, thanks to his friends in high places. It's safe to say that Scott really did not like General Harney. By now, General Scott was racked with gout, and he was so big, he had to be hoisted onto his ship in a basket. Nevertheless, he began the long journey to the Pacific Northwest.
He actually went? I didn't know that.
Everyone, get over here. Will somebody please tell me what the heck is going on? I'll tell you, General. It all started on one fateful day last summer. Spuddy? All right, you damn dirty pig. That's the final straw. What? Hey, you can't get away from me! Look at that pig. Nowhere left to run, eh? I'm gonna enjoy this.
Lyman, if you spare my life, I grant you 3 wishes.
What? Sounded kind of like Morgan Freeman.
You see, General, the pig wasn't even on his property when he shot it. Liar! He's lying to you, General. I'll tell you what really happened. What a pleasant summer's afternoon here on my humble farm. It's just me and my beloved potatoes. I'm so happy. Say, Lyman, them some nice spuds you got there. Would be a shame if somebody ate them. No, not again, you beast! Leave my potatoes alone! Yeah, I'm gonna eat them, Lyman. I'll eat them, and then I'm gonna eat you.
And this is a great life lesson, right? When you have two opposing sides who are telling very different stories, there's a good chance that the real story's somewhere in the middle, and there's an element of truth in both of them. And that's kind of the job of historians, right? Is trying to figure all of that out. Like, what are the biases of the person who's writing? What motivations do they have? What's their perspective? So, for example, when we're looking at Julius Caesar and a lot of what we know about the history of, say, his campaign against the Gauls, we only know from Julius Caesar. And so everything Caesar says has to be seen through the lens of what's Caesar's motivation? Why is he saying it this way? Are his numbers accurate? Would he have a reason to be accurate, or might he fudge these to make himself look better? So all of these things have to be considered, and that's true in this situation too. What's the truth? Depends on who's telling it.
Stay back! I'll shoot! Go ahead, punk. Make my day. Shoot me! Shoot me!
That's isn't that something that the Joker says in Dark Knight. That reminds me of one of those scenes for some reason. Or no, maybe it's, is it Two-Face? I can't remember. Somebody tell me.
He made me do it. He made me do it. So you're telling me you guys nearly started a war with the strongest naval power in the world over the shooting of a pig? Yeah, now he's starting to get it. Not only the pig, sir. The British then threatened to arrest this poor, pure American soul. Thank you, General. Shut up. I don't care about you. Okay, I've made up my mind. You're an idiot. 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 You guys are fine. And you two are the most mind-numbingly brain-dead ding-dongs I've ever encountered in all my life. And I'll see you in my office. Okay, Harney, listen. I cut a deal with the Brits. Here's how it's gonna be. Both sides will maintain a small force on the island for a joint military occupation until our two governments can decide who owns the island. Now, the only way they'd agree to that is if Pickett is removed from command. So I'm replacing him with Captain Hunt here. Now, Harney, listen to me. Do not, under any circumstances, put Pickett back.
I wonder if that's Henry Hunt, who becomes a Union artillery commander later on. Let's check that out. I actually couldn't find anything about Hunt. Maybe he just made up the name, or maybe it's just not something that was easily found. But let's continue.
Back on that island, okay? I mean it, Harney. Do not order Pickett back onto the island. Understood? Yes, sir. Good. I'll see you, Glubos, later.
Pickett, go back to the island.
Is he gone? I think so. Good. Hunt, you're fired. Pickett, you're going back on the island. All right, you psychopath. I've been waiting years for this. I hate you. I've always hated you. Harney had not only ordered Pickett back onto the island, but his department even notified the British that it did not recognize the joint occupation settlement.
Harney, I don't know what he was thinking. There's 4 generals in the whole U.S. Army at this point. The U.S. Army is really small, and Harney's actually the youngest of the 4 generals. He's like 60 years old at this point. He's a Southerner, but I think so is Winfield Scott. I think he was from Virginia. But Harney stayed loyal to the Union. He actually served in the Union Army during the Civil War, but was always kind of some doubts about him because he was from Tennessee.
While everyone else had decided on peace, Harney appeared to still be threatening war. Needless to say, a furious Winfield Scott soon removed him from command and sent him elsewhere.
Sent him to Jefferson Barracks, I think, in Missouri.
The joint occupation went ahead, and the troops actually got along together quite well. The British attended 4th of July celebrations at the American
Playing
camp,
cornhole.
while the Americans visited the British.
They're throwing Queen Victoria in the air. I love it.
Queen Victoria's birthday. Even Pickett became good friends with his British counterpart. War, it seemed, had been avoided, thanks largely to the level-headed actions of the Royal Navy and General Winfield Scott. Of course, the islands were still in dispute, and the question of who exactly owned them still had to be answered. That answer would have to wait, because while San Juan was at peace, the nation was tearing itself apart. When Civil War broke out in 1861, the issue of San Juan just wasn't that important.
Restore the Union, kick McClellan in the shins, drop hat off at dry cleaners, grow a mustache, and San Juan boundary dispute.
Harney, despite being a Southerner, remained in the U.S. Army, but was eventually removed from command at St. Louis when his loyalty to the Union came under suspicion. More famously, Captain Pickett, a native Virginian, went on to become a Confederate general. Pickett's charge at the Battle of Gettysburg remains one of the most famous moments of the entire war.
And cool little backstory, and I'm going to do a Forgotten History episode on this at some point. Pickett, his men were assaulting the 2nd Corps of the Union Army, which was held by Winfield Scott Hancock. Pickett and Hancock had almost fought a duel, I think like 10 years earlier. And I think Hancock said no. By this point, duels were like not really a thing anymore, but they almost came to a duel.
And marked a major turning point. U.S. relations with Britain actually soured during the war. The British, missing their supply of southern cotton, initially looked like they may intervene on the side of the Confederacy. There was the Trent Affair, when Confederate diplomats were discovered and arrested on a British mail steamer. And then there were the British-built ships sold to the Confederacy.
And there ended up being a big lawsuit after all of this, and I think it went into Grant's administration over the Alabama and the damages caused by the Alabama, and the British did end up paying reparations for the damage that was caused by the Alabama to the U.S. economy.
Wreaked havoc on northern commerce. When the Civil War ended, furious American politicians called on the British to pay reparations. And by now, a long list of hot issues existed between them. And yes, on that list remained, 12 years later, still the issue of who owned these gosh darn islands.
Yeah, they were occupied by both armies, I think, until the mid-1870s. The whole time Reconstruction's going on in the United States, there are still British and American troops on these islands.
That issue, it was finally agreed, would be submitted to international arbitration.
Kaiser Wilhelm!
The Empire of Germany would decide, with the British and Americans presenting arguments. The American argument was reportedly presented with a little more pizzazz, a little more zing. And in the end, when the Germans made their decision, they awarded the San Juan Islands to the United States.
And it's interesting that Kaiser Wilhelm is viewed as an independent arbiter because Kaiser Wilhelm is the grandson, the eldest grandson of Queen Victoria. So this is his family he's going against, you could say.
When an aging Douglas heard the news, he said that there was no possible way the British argument had been presented correctly. But that was that. The British conceded. And on the 25th of November, 1872, the last British troops left the island. As the Americans entered the British camp to raise their flag, they found that the British had removed the flagpole. What?
Had to stop there because it occurred to me I was talking about Kaiser Wilhelm I, not Kaiser Wilhelm II. Wilhelm II doesn't become emperor until 1888. So Wilhelm II is the granddaughter or the grandson of Queen Victoria. Wilhelm I is Wilhelm II's grandfather, and so not related to Queen Victoria. It was Wilhelm I's son who married Victoria's daughter. Totally different story. I apologize.
One last up yours to Uncle Sam. By this time, Charles Griffin had already left the island, and the Hudson's Bay Company eventually sold their sheep farm. And so, there you have it. A dangerous situation that almost brought two great powers to war, triggered by the shooting of a pig. But thanks to more level-headed minds and an eagerness for peace and cooperation, conflict was avoided. And the only casualty of this pig war was, well,
the pig.
Just a pig. But how different could things have been?
Yeah.
What if the British had attempted to arrest Pickett? What if they had landed troops? Could the two sides have actually gone to war? Could America have invaded Canada? Could it, perhaps, still invade Canada? Think about it. Why not?
America's
we have
hat.
the manpower. We have the arms. It's our manifest destiny. Picture a future where American Mounties wear red, white, and blue and hail the stars and stripes. Where Wayne Gretzky would wave the American flag every 4th of July in the streets of Montreal. Maple syrup, the greatest
USA?
American food. Banff, the greatest American national park. One united nation under the leadership of our glorious president, Drake. No longer shall we tolerate our smug neighbors to the north with their affordable insulin and endless comments complaining that I don't talk about Canada enough in my videos. That's right, Canadians. Watch your backs. Sleep with one eye open tonight.
That's awesome.
Because Biden's coming, baby. And this time, he's coming with a vengeance!
All right, that was a lot of fun. In Canada, we love you. We're not going to invade you anytime soon. So that was cool. Let me know your thoughts. Use the comment section below. It is an interesting what if. You know, there are so many times in history when the cooler heads don't prevail and how different things could have been. Imagine if the same successful diplomacy had happened in 1914, how different the world might be today. Or would the war have just broken out over something else? You know, there's so many of those what ifs, and that's why I like to occasionally do those kind of alternate history things, because it's fun to talk about and examine history that way. So let me know your thoughts. Use the comment section below, and we will see you again soon. Thanks for watching.